Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tech Data Impact. You're listening to Chris, and today we're going to be talking about my new game project. I've started something new, and I feel like sharing a few things about that. Let me just preface the video a little bit, all right? Because about 6 months ago, I launched this channel while working on my first game, Roboman. I was really excited about the game and starting YouTube, and back then everything was fueled by that early days excitement. You know, I was going crazy. I was probably going a bit overdrive, you know? There was a lot of excitement, of course, a little bit of nervousness, but over time, things just got harder. Life got busier. Development issues piled up. Making videos, actually took a lot more effort than I had expected. And I realized I was just trying to juggle too much, Roboman had started off simple, but I was dumb and I let it balloon into something I just couldn't manage anymore. And between raising kids, managing daily life, and just trying to squeeze in that dev time, I knew something had to give. So, turns up, I gave up Roboman. The damn thing was fighting me at every turn. I couldn't figure out what to do with that 2.5D setup in Godot. And to be honest, I just feel like I wasn't smart enough to figure it out at that point. I didn't have enough experience. So, I knew I'd be stuck for years trying to figure that stuff out unless I decided to pivot. So that's exactly what I did. Scrapped the whole project, switched my editor to 2D, and started something new. Something simpler, something obviously faster, and maybe even more fun. Best decision I've ever made. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce
Super Acetone.
Hello, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit.
The name's kind of dumb, but it's a mix of Axelay and Super R-Type, two of my favorite Super Nintendo shooters. I always appreciated the visual style in both games. First of all, the player ship looked quite distinct from all the other ships in other shooter games, and I just loved the enemy design, the world building, and all that other stuff that a lot of the other shooter games just kind of lacked. Especially R-Type with its obvious inspiration from the Geiger alien universe just seemed really cool. And the other really cool thing about these games was the awesome soundtrack that really just contributed to the whole experience. So it's obviously clear that both games left an impression on me, and I kind of want to somehow draw from those game experiences with this project. All right, so we're making a shooter. That's pretty basic, right? But that's not all. There's more to it, because we're going to be combining elements from Vampire Survivors and Balatro. And before you say, what the hell is that? That's crazy. You shouldn't do that. Let me just tell you, I've already done it. And I'm expecting it to be pretty freaking awesome. This is the gist. So you're a lonely spaceship flying through space. Suddenly, enemies start appearing on the screen. You squeeze the trigger and you start shooting these sons of bitches down. Ships go down and they leave XP orbs behind them. You go and pick them up because they're valuable, right? They've got to be. They pulsate. They look nice. They've got particles emanating from them. Okay, you pick up enough of these bad boys and what happens? Your ship begins to evolve. It basically levels up. So you're introduced with the screen. Bam! You've got a selection of 3 weapons or power-ups that you can pick. You can pick only one, but there's 3, right? So you gotta make a decision. Okay, you pick up a really badass looking weapon, game continues. Now you have more firepower to shoot your enemies down, murdering them mercilessly, picking up more of these XP orbs until you level up again. Awesome. Again, you're faced with a choice. 3 power-ups, you can only choose 1. However, because you've already leveled up, there's also a chance that the same weapon that you've already picked up shows up in the list. If you pick that pre-existing weapon type, the weapon levels up. Or the augmentation. It could also be an augmentation. Doesn't matter. That thing levels up. It's now more powerful. So you need to choose a new weapon, a completely new augmentation, or level up existing weaponry. Now, if you think about it, that's pretty cool for an R-Type / Axelay kind of a game. And what makes it even better, in my opinion, is the fact that there's this structure that exists in those kinds of games. You have actual levels, you have mid-level bosses, you have actual bosses. Hell, you might even have a storyline, something to follow through. So the gameplay loop actually becomes this. In the very beginning of the game, you're running against time, trying to shoot as many enemies down as you can so that at the latter parts of the game, you'll be able to fight back the hordes of enemies coming at you. Meaning if you're weak, it's very likely that you're not going to make it. Now if you're a badass, you're just going to destroy everything in your way. But still, there's more than just running around. You're basically trying to dodge hazards in the level, enemies shoot back at you. There's patterns that you need to be able to recognize, different kinds of enemies attacking you, enemies with specific weaknesses, and so on. And I feel like from that perspective, these Vampire Survivor type mechanics or Balatro mechanics work really well with this kind of a gameplay loop. But Chris, I hear you saying, you're doing it again. You're overcomplicating the project. You're never going to be able to pull something like this off, you dumbass. Wrong. I've already done it. Here's a quick look into the stuff that actually already works in my game. Let's start off with the player ship. So basically this bad boy already moves in all the necessary directions. You can shoot with it, it can take damage, it can die, and it can collect the XP orbs. I've also managed to create a few enemy types. Enemies that can touch and harm the player, that shoot back at the player, enemies that can be destroyed, and they'll leave XP orbs behind. But most impressive of all, I've actually managed to build a level up system, and this is the core of the gameplay experience itself. So I have a few mutators, or I don't know, power-ups if you want to call them that. And once you collect enough XP orbs, you actually go through this leveling up process that then adds the power-up onto your ship. And you can collect more than one. And you can also stack these things on top of one another. Look, I know real coders are probably laughing their asses off right about now. For somebody who haven't had too much experience with this kind of stuff, I am super proud of this system. Now, it's still not all the way complete. I need a pool of different kinds of augmentations, more than 20 at least, and I need to have the system randomly choose 3 every time you level up. I feel like I've done that already, but I'm not exactly sure because, you know, I don't have more than 3 different power-ups in existence right now. But in the final game, I want to have more than 20, and not all of them are going to be direct weapons. They might augment the way that you shoot, like passing through armor or increasing ship speed or any of these other things. The idea is that at some point you'll play the game through multiple times because you can create your own builds and then try to finish the game with the build you've created yourself. And to be able to test that and really just see if it's working or not, I need to have levels and design goals. Enemies, bosses, and XP pacing need to be figured out and balanced. If you don't destroy enough enemies, you fall behind and all that good stuff. I want players to feel overwhelmed when they play, but I also want them to be empowered by smart power-up choices. I want to have dramatic enemy entrances, missile volleys, minefields, stuff that forces quick reactions and smart movements. Bosses should have unique shticks, weaknesses, and stage presence. Think Axley or Star Fox style introductions. Now, I've written the entire first level out. I just feel like it's time to build the whole thing out and see if it's any fun. But that's kind of a large project. And within that project itself, there's smaller projects that I can focus on, like creating the few enemy types that are still missing, a basic turret, and then an enemy spawner station. Those are relatively quick to do, I feel like. Then there's the mid-level boss and the level boss, and those might take quite a bit of time. So we'll see. I'll focus on doing the tiny enemies first and then do the larger ones. And after I'm done with that code, I'm just going to use some placeholder graphics for the bosses because designing the sprites and animations and all that stuff is very time consuming. So let's just get the functionality out of the way first. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to make another video and basically demonstrate to you guys what I've managed to do. So I guess that's it for the episode, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to get to work. And I'll be releasing a new video as soon as I got everything running in the game engine itself and I can test that stuff out and we can take a look at it together. I'll demonstrate it and whatnot. If any of you are still hanging around, please subscribe, drop a like, drop some comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.